Talk to Me is one of the better horror films I've seen in the last few years. Hey, what's up, nerd fam? This is your boy Gershon. I want to welcome you to Enter the Nerd. Today, I wanted to briefly talk about the 2023 horror movie, Talk to Me. Now, I had heard a lot of buzz about this, a lot of really good reviews, and I wanted to see it for myself. I saw it, and my conclusion is this is one of the better horror films that have been out for the last few years. And horror is one of my favorite genres. After like martial arts films, it's straight to horror. And horror is one of those genres for me that can be hit or miss now because there's so many jump scares, not really true horror, not building up the ambiance, not making your mind, while watching it, imagine like the most grotesque or just disturbing imagery and just waiting for that mystery. You know, there's so many psychological things that can happen in horror too. Playing with lighting, things like that seem to be a lost art when it comes to horror. But every now and then you get a film like Hereditary, which I think did that really, really well. And it really can tug on some heartstrings because, you know, just briefly, if you haven't seen Hereditary, go see it. But that way, you know, spoiler alert if you haven't. But that movie was great because it was between supernatural and even exploring, you know, mental health in the family. And I like when they get a chance to talk about things like that. And in this movie, it was obviously supernatural, but it also spoke about the effects of grief and what it can have on a person, like the mental effects. And like the protagonist of this film wasn't all the way likable. And a lot of it just had to do with the type of grief that she went through and how willing she was to be able to put certain loved ones in danger. I'm not trying to spoil it too much. There are going to be some spoilers in here if you haven't seen it, like just light spoilers. So just tell you that. But pretty much there is, and this is actually part of the synopsis they show. There's an embalmed hand that these kids are using as almost like a party trick where you touch the hand, you say, talk to me, you see a ghost, and then you say, I let you in or something like that, and the ghost like can briefly almost like possess you, and then they take you out of it in 90 seconds, which is, you know, a pretty unique concept in itself, that's how it was. And these kids are doing it for fun, like just letting their body get like used and ridden by like some random spirit because they think it's fun. It makes sense for it to be teenagers because, you know, teenagers don't really understand the gravity of certain situations. But obviously someone who the protagonist who recently just lost her mother, this means something. Well, I think it's like 2 years. I think it was 2 years since her mom died. Either way, it's recent. And her having nightmares and, you know, her attaching to like her best friend's family and, you know, wanting to maybe have the chance to like see her mom. And obviously something catastrophic happens, which is what leads this film to obviously go to some really, really, really dark places. And this, damn, something about motorcycles in my videos, I don't know. But the whole point is, this resonated with me a bit. And like, I don't always need anything to resonate with me, but it did because obviously she lost her mother. I've also lost my mother due to cancer, right? And when they played with a lot of disturbing imagery with her mom, like her seeing her mom, especially in a state that she might have been when she died, it brought me back to something that actually happened to me. I actually had a really, and if this is like sensitive for you, sorry, especially if you've experienced something similar. When my mom died, she had breast cancer. At the end of her days, she didn't look good. It was really, really bad, right? Like one of her arms was bigger than the other. Like think like Hellboy big, like really, like because it originated all on one side, right? And then she died like that. Really like the rest of her body small, but one side of her body big. And I remember having a dream, and this might have been like last year or something, where in the dream I'm in the bed, and I look towards like the corner where my door is, and I see a face looking in through the crack, and I vaguely recognize it to be my mother. And I get up, I open the door, and I look at my long hallway, and it's my mother, and she's wearing like the hospital gown. It's kind of like slinking off of her because of how her body was, and she's moving back in like down the hallway, kind of similar to what that girl in the ring moves, like just very weird, and it was crazy. And I remember me trying to just move close to her so I can figure out what her face looked like, but I knew it was her. But I remember that feeling that it gave me, just terrified, but also because I missed my mother, I was also just needed to see if that was her. So I understood like her, even in that weird, disturbing, scary moments, just wanted to see her mother again, just wanted to talk to her mother again. And I know how that feels. So when I saw that, I was just like, resonated. And I wonder if there's anybody else who saw that who resonated. And it did, like I said, it played a lot with grief, because there was somebody else in that film who lost somebody recently, and they're also acting very different because of it as well. And I understand that too. I understand like the concept of, certain things changing about you, even if it's temporary, until you realize like, damn, I'm acting different to people who didn't deserve it, and I'm acting out of character, and perhaps I just have a whole bunch of like unresolved grief issues, right? And I can see that happening here, but it obviously ends up in a much more extreme way in this film. But I like films that play with multiple elements, not just like supernatural, because if it's anything with horror that I really like, I love supernatural horror. So I love things with ghosts, spirits, demons, things like that, which is why I can't wait for The Exorcist to come out too, because I saw the trailer for that, and that looks disturbing. But I don't really like jump scares, like, because jump scares are so cheap to me. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, just weird. It just takes no talent. But I like it when it feeds off of something personal, or like, for example, when the ghosts look how they did when they died, especially with something traumatic. It's weird because some movies will have somebody die of something traumatic and they look like perfectly clean and stuff like that when they're dead. But it's like, I like it when they are in the same like messed up state they were when they died, because it's like, would a person who died traumatic with all that negative energy, would they automatically just be okay? Because if it's so unresolved, what if that person didn't want to die? Like, it brings up all these things. And are they angry at the living? Because whatever, I can go on and on about like the dynamics of things like that. But I love when they put things like that in a horror film. I really do. And I appreciated this a lot. It was only an hour and 20 minutes, so if you watch it, it won't take too much of your time, and it gets straight to the point. And I'll say the ending isn't rainbow and sunshine, which is also something that I can appreciate, especially when you understand the series of events that are happening in here. It doesn't always make sense for it to be a happy ending. And I appreciated the film. Most of the actors and actresses were young, like really, really young, so they did their part. They were rather convincing, and I like that. And they even had some notable veteran actresses in there, which were pretty cool as well. So overall, I would definitely recommend you go see this if you like horror and you want to be refreshed by something that I won't say, oh, it's the best horror film I've ever seen, but it's a damn good one, especially for right now. Let me know what you think. If you've watched it, let's talk about it. If you understand those other concepts, and maybe you have some recommendations of other films that also deal with maybe something supernatural and fantastical, but then a very like real concept that people can resonate with, put some of those down in the comments too. Until then, keep watching those horror movies and Enter the Nerd.